This next part of our lesson is going to build on what you did for homework last night, which is how can we use algebra to solve more complex inequalities and represent the solution set. So again, just as a reminder, please make sure you're following along in your notes. You're going to have a chance to pause the video and try some practice problems. It's really important that you try those on your own so that you know what you're understanding and what you're not understanding. You can definitely, if you get stuck along the way, hit play and look at the solution and see if you can get unstuck. Once you find where you're stuck and get the next step, then hide the solution and see if you can finish it up. So the first question we're going to solve is right here. So we've got this inequality, and they want us to represent the solution on a number line as an inequality and using interval notation. So remember your steps. Step one is to find the boundary point. And that means figuring out where 6m minus 3 times 4m plus 1 is equal to 10m minus 8 minus 7m. Think about what your first step might be for this. I noticed some parentheses, which means I'm going to have to distribute. And the number I'm distributing is negative. So this is going to become 6m minus 12m minus 3 equals 10m minus 8 minus 7m. Now, before I start moving things from one side to the other, I'm going to see if there's anything I can combine on the same side. And I notice I have a 6m minus a 12m. Those are like terms. 6 minus 12 is negative 6. Don't forget to carry your variable down. On this side, I have a 10m and a minus 7m. That's going to give me a 3m minus 8. Now that I've got each side simplified, I can start to move things from one side to the other. I notice this 6m right here is negative. So to move it to the other side, I'm going to add it. Do the opposite. Negative 6m plus 6m gives me 0. So I get negative 3 equals 9m minus 8. Now I need to move the 8 because it does not have a variable with it. Negative 3 plus 8 is 5, so I get 5 equals 9m, and this is 9 times m. So to get m alone, I need to get rid of the 9, which means I need to divide both sides by 9. Now, that does not divide evenly, so what I end up with, I'm going to leave it as a fraction. M equals 5/9. So what I now know is I now know my boundary point. So my second step, so I'm just going to write this up top. M equals 5/9. That's my boundary. That's where the two sides are equal. My second step is to set up my number line. Now, I've got to decide if I'm using an open or closed circle. Because this is just less than, and there's no equal underneath, we know it's an open circle. And I always like to put 0 on here just as a reference. 5/9 is going to be here, and then 1 is going to be up here, just so I kind of get an idea of where this is. And I know there's an open circle at 5/9, which means 5/9 is not part of my solution. My next step is to test a point. I want to pick a point other than the boundary, and I want to see if it makes the original inequality true or false. I always like to use 0 if it's available. So I'm going to test m equals 0. Now, if you don't have a calculator, I'd like you to pause this video and get up and grab a calculator. There's a really nice, oh, I wonder where, oh, there it is. There's a really nice way that we can go ahead and use our calculator to figure out if 0 is part of the solution. So if you hit your home screen, you can press 1 to open a new document. Don't save anything. And we're going to add a calculator page. First thing I want to do is I want to store my variable as 0. So we start with 0. And then if you look above the variable button in blue, it says stow. So I'm going to hit Control and then stow. And I'm going to store that as M. And I'm going to hit Enter. Now what I need to do is I want to know, whoops, it's giving me kind of weird options here. There we go. I want to know if 0 is a solution to this. So because I stored 0 in M, if I start typing this equation in, or inequality, I should say, 6M, you'll notice that M is bolded. That means that it's plugging 0 into this for me. So I'm going to type in exactly what I see for my original function, including my parentheses and everything. Now, to get your inequality symbol, you're going to press Control and then the equal sign, because above the equal sign are all your inequality symbols. I want to pick that one right there. And then I'm going to enter this other side, 10M minus 8 minus 7M. And if I hit Enter, I get false. So that means when M is 0, this inequality is false. So when M is equal to 0, my inequality is false. We said the solution set is values that make the inequality true. So 0 cannot be part of my solution set. In fact, nothing to the left of 5/9 can be. My solution set is going to be on the opposite side as 0. So my last step is to write this solution. Okay. So my final answer they want it written as a number line. Whoops. Which we've got up above. So you're welcome to just circle that number line. Actually, let's do that. There's our number line. Then they want it as an inequality. So my inequality, my solution here, X, is, since it's an open circle, greater than 5/9. And then my interval notation, it starts at 5/9 and it ends all the way to the right at infinity. It does not include 5/9, so it gets a parentheses, and we can never actually reach infinity. So these, along with the number line, are my final answer. Okay, here's one for you to try. It's modeled exactly like the one that we just did. So pause the video, give it a try. Here is your solution. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So actually, I'm going to zoom out so you can see this. There we go. So if you need to, please go ahead and pause the video right now so you can check your work. Now, here's a follow-up question. So this was the example we just did. Here's our solution. If I asked you to state the smallest possible integer value of k that is in the solution set, what would it be? First thing we need to know is an integer is a positive or negative whole number. So if I look at the integers that 2/9 is between, it's between 0 and 1. So what's the smallest integer value of k that's in the solution set? Well, 0's not in the shaded part. So the smallest integer value of k is 1. How do we know? 1 lies in the shaded area of the number line. 1 makes the inequality true. You've got a lot of different justifications you can give. Okay, here's the next example we're going to do together. This one is a little bit tricky because I've got a fraction here. I also have a negative out in front of my parentheses. So I'm solving an inequality. My first step is to find the boundary. Remember, I find the boundary by solving the equation. So it's negative, and I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 there just so I remember. Now, I would like to turn this into a decimal. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and type in. If you hit Control Divide, you'll get a fraction. And I'm going to put in 6/5. And if I hit Enter, I get something very unhelpful, which is the same fraction back. So what I would like you to do is hit your up arrow, select 6/5 and hit Enter. And then above the Enter sign, there's a little blue squiggly equal sign. That means approximately equal to. So if I press Control Enter, it converts it into a decimal for me. It's 1.2. So I'm going to go ahead and write this as 1.2x equals, and I'm going to put a 1 in front of that x there. Okay, so now I can distribute. A negative times a negative is a positive. And then the minus 10 will become a positive. Before I move things around, let me make sure each side is as simple as I can get it. So I've got to do 5 minus 1.2. Whoops. 3.8. So I'm going to get 3.8x plus 10 equals 1x. Now, if I look at this, I've got x's on this side and this side. So I want to get them to the same side. So I'm going to move the 3.8x over with the other x. So I'm going to get 10 equals. Now, don't be afraid to use your calculator. I'm going to do 1 minus 3.8. And I get negative 2.8. And then my last step is to divide both sides by negative 2.8 to get x by itself. So I'm going to do 10 divided by negative 2.8. Ooh, that's not an awesome number. Negative 3.57143. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit Enter. And I'm going to hit my menu button. I want to change the way this number looks. So I'm going to ask my calculator to approximate it to a fraction. And when I hit Enter, it gives me negative 25/7. So my exact answer for this is negative 25/7. And just so I can place it on the number line, that is about equal to negative 3.57. Okay, so step 2 is my number line. So I've got 0. I know negative 3.57 is between negative 3 and negative 4. So I'm going to put my solution right about here, and I want to make sure I indicate what that is. So negative 25/7. Now I need to figure out what kind of circle goes there. So I look back at my inequality. It's less than, not less than or equal to, so it's an open circle. Now I have to figure out which side of the number line I'm graphing. So I'm going to test a value. The value I'm going to go ahead and test is x equals 0. So I'm going to bring back up my calculator. I'm going to put 0 and I'm going to store it as x. Oops. There we go. And now I'm going to type in my original inequality. And the x is bolded, so I know it's using the value. Oops. 6/5 x is less than x. Enter. It tells me false. So x equals 0 makes the inequality false. So 0 is not part of my solution. So I shade the opposite side of my number line. The last thing I need to do is write my solution. So here's my number line. As an inequality, my solution would be x is less than -25/7. And then in interval notation, this begins at -infinity and it goes up to -25/7. That's where my solutions lie. Because this is an open circle, I'm going to put a parenthesis there. So these are the other two parts of my solution. Now, what's the largest integer that's in this solution set? They love to ask that. It's -4. -4 is the largest integer in the solution set. Okay, here's the next one I'd like you to try. Here's your solutions. I'm going to zoom out so that you can hopefully see all of it. So go ahead and pause the video. Okay, last example. And I'm not going to go through this whole thing. The piece of advice that I would give you is convert 5/2 to a decimal. So rewrite this as 5 is greater than or equal to 7x plus 2.5 times -4x plus 3 minus 6. Then change this to an equal sign and go ahead and see if you can solve it. Okay? So if you would like that practice, give this one a try and bring it up to me and I'll check it. If you feel like, okay, I don't need that practice, let me just try this one, you can give this one a try. So pause the video, give it a try. And here's your solution. Okay. I know that was a long video, but there was a lot of details in that. So there's some practice for you to try. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. Just to make sure we covered everything, the goal in this video is to make sure we can use algebra to solve more complex inequalities and represent the solution set. We saw that here. We saw cases where we had to use, let's see, fractions. Okay. We had cases where our answer was a weird number and we were still able to work with that. And then way back at the beginning, we said some of our goals were to understand that the solution set for an inequality involves many possible solutions or values that make the inequality true. We saw that here, for example. Here's my solution. My solution is any number in this shaded interval. There's many, many, many numbers that will make my original inequality true. There's also many numbers that will make it false. And then just to be able to represent the solutions using number lines, interval notation, and inequality notation, and determine if values lie inside or outside of the solution set. So hopefully you feel comfortable with that. Definitely work on the practice and come up and see me if you've got any questions. Bye-bye.